It's Saturday, my dudes, and we are here with the Formula Drift AEM Intakes halftime show. My name is Sam.
I'm Corey Hosford.
And I'm Paco.
And we are the boys from Maximum Driftcast, and we are here to just talk about drifting. We fell asleep about October last year, right after Wendell. We don't have anything else to do other than talk about drifting. But we woke up this morning. We heard that there was an event going on. It's the 15th season of Formula Drift.
Yeah, we would consider this the quinceañera of Formula Drift.
Formula Drift quinceañera, that's right.
You got to roll your R's better, Paco.
Quinceañera.
Yeah, but there is so many new faces here. There's a lot of old faces. There's some returning faces. There's new liveries, new cars. Let's get right into it.
Yeah, so much has changed during this offseason, and you hear from drivers switching from teams to teams. You hear drivers actually bringing their car back to their shop to work on it personally to get more hands on deck with the program itself. But this year, even through practice and qualifying, what we saw the past couple days has been pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, right when qualifying began, Forrest Wang, who took a year off, kicked it off first run of the 2018 season, kicked it off with a 93-point.
Qualified third.
Yeah, and which is insane that he took a year off and then came right back, threw down that run, saying that nothing has changed. He's still here to throw down the style.
He's got a good team behind his program this year, and it's guaranteed he's going to be one of the guys to be paying attention this season.
And that's, once again, Paco, kind of one of those things that, during the offseason, obviously Forrest was one of the guys that wanted to get back into the sport, and, he's saying he really missed that competition side of drifting. He went out there, he's done a lot of those party events, and now to come back out here and first run out, actually the first person to qualify, throw down a 93 is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Some noticeable changes to the car that he kind of mentioned. He's actually going back to the 3-liter 2JZ, which he went from the 3.2 stroker back to the 3-liter, still running.
Which I'm pretty sure Turk did as well. I wonder why these 2JZ guys are.
Well, I think Peter and Dean definitely set the example of the 3 liters as probably or seems to be the more reliable platform. And then the other thing Forrest mentioned today is he's actually running a smaller turbo this year than when he ran before. He's
just
actually
to get that spool,
he's running that GTX 3584 this year, which he's he was saying
he's not with the numbers.
Hey, do you know what? Sometimes we got to look into this stuff, but
reliability is the name of the game.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting to hear him say, he's like, you know what? I'm not necessarily looking at that top end number anymore. He's like, this thing is coming on immediately, and what makes it better for proximity and chasing cars.
Well, let's talk about some new drivers in the Pro Series. We have Austin Meeks, Matt Van Kirk, Taguchi, Dirk Stratton, and of course Federico. These drivers came out today, and honestly, some of the best new guy driving I've ever seen at Long Beach. This is the great equalizer. These drivers have to come out here with brand new cars, driving with the pros for the first time, and suddenly they have to face the walls of Long Beach.
Kevin Lawrence, one of the drivers who just came from Pro 2, unfortunately he didn't bring his pro car.
Well,
He's bringing an R32, which unfortunately got some damage.
He ran his demo car though, right?
But it's still running pretty good so far.
Yeah, and then we, of course, see some new cars from some seasoned drivers. Matt Field, well-documented build of the Drift Corvette he made.
Right.
We've been talking to him throughout the build and today, and he said that, of course, he was very honest. He said he wasn't comfortable necessarily with the car initially, but I talked to his spotter, and he's getting better with every run, as we saw.
Yeah, I put a lot of pressure on Matt Field because we were talking back and forth. I'm like, hey, Matt, you're going to be one of my predictions this round. And then I heard an interview with him earlier today with Lorette saying, you know what, I'm still at that point where I'm at 90% of what I feel I am, and I think I could pick it up later on. And with that, I'm hoping he's able to get that extra 10% rolling into competition because he's going against some stacked people now.
Yeah.
Going from top 32 to top 16, it's the battles have been incredible. And I say within the past 2 years, there's no easy battle from top 32
it's a stacked Matt Field.
Stacked field.
Unfortunately, we're missing Taylor Holt's Cadillac. We couldn't make it this round. He's going to be there in the next round, but we still got a 30 driver.
And of course, Dean Kearney was unfortunately out with, I believe, some engine issues. So we would have a full field, but those guys were out with some problems. But that is just kind of growing pains with getting new cars, new season. It just happens. Then we also have in qualifying, there were some notable things. Of course, we saw Team Wardhouse, Peter Wiechek, and Dean. They both got, I don't think I'm wrong on this, they got 96s. Every run, right?
Yes. So there was 4 96 runs, back to back to back to back.
Yeah.
And these guys, even through media day and through practice, the runs are so consistent. And as we were sitting here, we were watching qualifying with the judges, and I leaned over and asked the judges, I'm like, where's 4 points at? Where do you lose 4 points on the racetrack? And the only thing they mentioned to me is the outer zone coming underneath the bridge. There's 2 indicators on the wall. And they were saying that they weren't completely filling that outer zone, and that's where they would lose
because the
3
first
of those
zone,
points.
The first zone you hit, the first wall is the touch and go, and that just means you touch it and you go.
Right.
And the next zone is the outer zone 1, and you're actually supposed to fill that and stay there. And that's the only place they left points on the board. Otherwise, those runs look nearly perfect. Dean, of course, last year's champion and the guy to beat here and maybe every round going forward. But Peter is, right there.
One of the interesting things is that these two guys have pretty much the same car. They look almost the same. They drive almost the same. The only way to tell them apart is by hearing.
Yeah, well, no, I figured it out. So Dean's car has red, a little bit more red on the roof and the hood, and I think of that because red, James Dean is very angry. He sees red all the time.
Yep.
And Peter
just floors it all the time.
His car's blue a little bit on the top.
Yeah, it's the opposite.
And his name, if you were to look at it phonetically, is Otter, Piotr.
Yeah,
and otters swim in the water, which the water is blue.
Right.
So therefore,
Illuminati confirmed.
This is the only way I can actually remember which car is which.
Perfect.
All right.
Right. And here's another one that was in qualifying that really stood out to me. How about Dirk Stratton?
Yeah,
Dirk Stratton was the highest qualifying rookie coming into this event, and he actually qualified 14th, which put him against Vaughn in the top 32, which Vaughn qualified 19th.
Which is exciting to see the blue oval versus bow tie battle, But yeah, Vaughn had a weird qualifying thing. I haven't talked to him about it yet, but he didn't run his second run.
Right, so it's these rookies are coming out here definitely swinging. Dirk Stratton went out there and laid it down. But there's one person that stands out, which leads us into our next entire moment. And this one definitely has to go to Paco Sharifo. Hopefully I got that name right.
And he likes to go by Fede, we've learned.
Fede and his Ferrari, which he calls Paco.
Fiorella.
And for us that can't pronounce it, we just call him Bella. So,
but this car was the talk of the town before it even showed up. The first Ferrari to, I believe, in Formula Drift. Beautiful car, and he drove remarkably well for someone that has never driven the track. He, of course, has experience in Japan with D1 and Team Orange, and the car had an incident.
Yeah, it's one of those things. He qualified pretty well. He came out here and he definitely put on a show through qualifying. And then in his first run, he ended up making contact with Chelsea Denofa, which led to the second part of the battle where he had the incident of actually the front knuckle breaking on the Ferrari. And it ended up pitching some lines and causing a fire, what we're seeing now. And we had a chance to go over there, check out the car, and a lot of it is cosmetic, and obviously there's going to have to be some plumbing replaced and wiring, but for the most part, he has no doubt that he will be back.
He's very positive. He's a good sportsman. So
he has no doubt the team won't get that thing back together before next round in Florida, and just one of those things. He's a super positive guy, and if you haven't had a chance, definitely go over there and speak with him. But he's like, hey, you know what? We come out here, we compete, we battle door to door with these guys, and you know what? Even though it happens, we just got to deal with it and keep moving forward. So he's definitely a newcomer that comes with a lot of energy, very motivated, and he's definitely one of those guys you can walk up to, give him a high five, and say, hey man, hopefully see you next round. But for the next entire moment, it definitely goes out to Paco Sharifo and Bella in the beautiful Ferrari 599 twin supercharged V12.
Right, and other battles of top 32 that were definitely notable. Dan, my favorite car, my favorite new livery is Radical Daniel and his Supra. Man, I love that car. The attention to detail is incredible. And he unfortunately had a little meeting with the wall there, the touch and go, and spun it around as they are known to do when they get their butt end a little bit too heavy into that wall. And oh god, I'm watching the replay right now. It makes me so sad because that's my favorite car on the grid this year.
Yeah. The nice thing here about social media is now you have a chance to follow these guys and see the attention, the detail that they put into these cars. And Dan was one of those guys that you can really pay attention to. Now I was on YouTube channel where he takes it down to a bare frame, and then literally attention to detail is just one of those most things that Dan really focuses on. And then see him to drive all so well through practice and qualifying, and then have an incident like that against Odie is just like, man, this is this could have been his year.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be back together very soon and just as beautiful as always. A couple other battles that were definitely notable. Blues and Hellbrunn, the BMW battles.
International drivers, all BMWs, they look great. I mean, I thought it was going to go one more time.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, Blues ended up moving on, but still pretty close call in my opinion. Yeah. Both great drivers, both very aggressive.
Yeah, look at those runs. I mean, you see the proximity to that outer wall. They're both hitting the zones. They're both just incredible drivers in their own merit. And this is probably, I think the judges might have said, well, this is one of the harder battles to judge. And that's kind of weird, though, because this battle wasn't uniquely difficult, I think. I think the top 32 in itself was a pretty straightforward top 32.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these guys are really throwing it all out on the line. You know, obviously when you do 110%, which all these guys are doing now, there's that just one smidgen error that you got to make that could either sway the call in your way or obviously against the other driver.
Yeah.
But it's been definitely a very interesting top 32. The qualifying and practice leading up to it has been phenomenal. But, you know, overall looking forward to top 16 as we have a lot more crazy battles kind of coming up to us here in the next little bit.
And a good example actually, let's go to a commercial break, I believe, right?
You know what, Sam? Let's do that. Let's head over to the commercials. Let's take our breath.
All right, we are back. A couple more notes from top 32 that I think were notable battles. We had Farouk and Hanadel. Farouk he's had some tough times in pro.
Last year was a tough time for him.
But I think he's always driven aggressively, but he hit the points that he needed to hit. He drove better than I've ever seen him. It was exciting to see him do well. He still has room to grow, of course, but it was good to actually see him out there.
Yeah, that's the thing. You see Farouk's confidence go up, and obviously he got into the wall a little bit, and looking at him through practice is like, man, this is definitely a much different driver that we're used to seeing, especially for last year. He had quite a few hiccups, but hopefully we'll be able to see kind of Farouk kind of flourish throughout the year as he keeps developing that car and his team and progressing forward.
And then one person we didn't see in top 32 was Castro, unfortunately. He was having engine problems, I understand, and didn't make it out.
He was barely 5 to 10 minutes from being ready to compete. So
yeah,
almost close.
I heard his spotter asking for just a little more time, but unfortunately, them rules is the rules. You can't.
It's interesting, you know, as we're sitting up here in the spotter stands, we see and hear a lot of different things that a lot of people don't get to hear. And, you know, it's so funny. You see some of the guys with their fingers crossed saying, be a close battle so we can get 5 more minutes. Give us, give us one more time, because that's all we need to get out there. And, you know, obviously Steph runs a phenomenal operation where he changes engines for fun just because it's so easy. And especially with Castro's situation, he was one of the giant killers last year. You know, you go back to the battle against James Dean, where he ended up advancing, which was definitely one of the more spectacular chase runs we've seen all year. Yep. We had high expectations for Castro, but, you know, it's one of those things. You come out here, you don't know what to expect, and sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't.
Right. Yep. And let's make some far-off predictions. We don't know if we're going to be right or wrong, but what are you guys expecting to see for top 16? We're getting right into top 16 here very soon. What do you guys want to see?
I personally think Forrest Wang versus Von Gidding is going to be a very interesting race.
Yeah, so that's definitely going down. That's going down in top 16 here at the second half. That's going to be an interesting race. We're going to have Forsberg versus Denofa. They've both been driving very well. Forsberg is back in the car that he knows and loves and built himself, actually. Denofa is just looking sharp as ever. If he can keep on that edge, because I know Denofa, he likes to drive 110%. If he can drive like 95, you know, we get to see the best Denofa.
But if Chris wins against Chelsea, then we're going to have the opportunity to maybe see a battle between Forsberg and Forrest Wang.
Yeah, so in the Grade 8, we might see a Wang and Forsberg, which there is some history there if you guys have been following the series for a while, which is definitely always an interesting battle to see.
Yeah, and then, you know, outside of that, you know, you have Matt Field versus Alec Honadel. Yeah. You know, that's another battle there where you have Alec Honadel, who's in his 240SX. It's been picked up by Huddy Racing, which it seems like they have that car dialed into a T. Alex is looking great out there on track. And then you have Matt Field, which, you know, Matt Field is in this wild, crazy Corvette that he is considering a way better platform than the S14 he's driven. But once again, that brings up the question is, did Matt Field find that other 10% to be able to drive at that 100%? Or do you have Alec, who's driving the same chassis, which he's been driving for the past 2 years, to say, do you know what? I already have what it takes. I'm comfortable with this chassis. I'm at 100% for where we started. Where do we go from here? So that's definitely going to be another battle to kind of keep an eye on, because those dudes have been doing so much in this offseason to develop their team.
Right. We also have, for throwbacks, we have Osmo versus Blues.
Yeah, Osmo versus Blues.
That one's going to be very interesting.
Which we saw in Long Beach last year. Yep. And if you were here and if you saw some some things on the internet afterwards. There's some colorful commentary.
Things were said.
Things were said. Yeah, but those guys are going to go very hard against each other, no doubt. Both in different cars, both in new cars. So that's going to be interesting. Right off the bat, we're going to be starting with.
Here's another interesting one that really stands out to me.
Yeah.
How about JTP versus Od?
Yeah. Why is that interesting to you?
I'll tell you why that's interesting, because JTP, he actually has 2 chassis this year, okay?
Yeah.
So JTP actually brought out his chassis that he used last year. He put a 2018 Ford Mustang front end on it to update the chassis a little bit. And then he also has Jason from PSI helping and managing his team. But, as you know, Justin goes 110% out here on this track. And if you look back a couple years ago, Justin wanted his Mustang up last year.
Like that's a Mustang
into the wall. And that's why he goes, you know what, I'm bringing out my old one because I'm ready to do that again, right?
Yep.
And so he's driving his old car from last year. And then you have Odie, once again, back in the S14. Odie has no desire to change because he's like, I have this thing dialed in 110%.
Yep.
They're both in old cars. They know they're competitive, and they're ready to throw down.
And they're both on teal and blue livery.
Yeah, so we'll see the Falcon rivalry start there with Odie and JTP.
And our first battle of the top 16 is going to be Peter and Kaufman. And Peter's been driving as well, if not better, than Dean, in my opinion. And I think that's going to be a great battle because also Kaufman is out there.
Has been out for blood.
And I think you told me yesterday that Kaufman was your choice for who you think could take the entire event.
Yeah.
Should we talk about our event predictions? Who's going to be on the podium?
Should we go to that? Let's go to the Motegi Racing predictions. Where do we think this is going to go from top 16 forward? My Motegi Racing predictions is, do you want to go to the Final Four and tell us what our Final Four is? Do you want to break down the bracket?
Let's just go to our finals. Who's going to be on the podium for you?
So the podium for me, oh man, I'm looking at the tree right now, the bracket, and I have Peter versus JTP.
Peter versus JTP.
And that's going to advance to the final round. On the other side of the bracket, I'm going to say it's going to be Dean versus Forsberg.
Okay.
Going to that, battling for that 3rd position. So it's going to be in the finals, I say JTP versus James Dean, and then overall I think Dean may squeak out just a little bit, but I say JTP, Dean, Forsberg, final 3.
All right, Paco, what do you think?
Well, on my 4 guys, I have on one side Peter and Blues. On the other side, James Dean and Forrest Wine. I so want to see James Dean versus Forrest Wine battle.
That's a good point, Paco.
Insane.
People were dreaming about that when Dean came, and unfortunately Wayne was out. But now we're going to have the battle of you can call them the 240SX
the battle
Masters
of the
right now. Yeah, the style battle.
Both S15s, both JCs.
And what's your final podium?
Great. I can't tell really between James Dean and Wang. Obviously, I want Wang to win, but I think it's going to be definitely podium with Peter, Blues, and
Who's on top? You got to make a commitment.
Forrest Wang.
Forrest Wang on top.
Forrest Wang on top. Forrest Wang's going to take the win.
All right, so I've got on the left side of the bracket. It's going to be Peter versus Blues. They're going to go against each other. I unfortunately think that Peter's going to win, but that doesn't mean that I'm counting out Blues by any means. I think that he can definitely still pull out a win from there. But Peter's still driving like he did when he won Irwindale the last round for the Drift 2017. He seems unstoppable. I think that maybe we might see Dean and Denofa. I think Denofa has been driving very strong. He didn't have really a chance to prove himself in top 32 because he went against that messy battle with Fede. But I think that he definitely has the potential to be on a podium. And then I think that the finals are going to be, just because these guys deserve it. They both got 96s in qualifying the entire time. I think it could be Dean versus Peter. And I think that Dean might squeak by just because of history, and he's the last year's champion, and his driving is still so flawless.
But what's the statistics on that, Paco? Wasn't Peter the only guy that's beat
the only guy that's
beating
James Dean in competition in Europe?
So there's some story behind that one too. So that could go either way.
So it's going to be. I mean,
happen.
I think it's going to be an interesting final no matter what.
Right.
And every battle up to now is going to be very, very interesting. We got the Titans of drifting, and these are all very familiar names. The rookies, of course, not to discount them, did great. But all the rookies we're going up against.
But that's the thing. Even the rookies are strong drivers. Like, we've seen them do great on Pro 2.
Right.
So we know what they're capable of. Like, probably the hardest thing here is getting used to the track, which is that first for all the Pro 2 drivers.
And the other thing, too, is the butterflies, man. You know, a lot of these guys that make that jump from Pro 2 to Pro 1, you look at it's like, lining up next to Von Gittin Jr. I'm lining against Chris Forsberg. I'm lining up against Kristaps and Dean. You know, that can turn little butterflies a little bit.
Yeah.
And so
the last thing you want to do is jar sell your car in the first race.
Yeah. So, but there's so many variables. You know, Long Beach, that's what makes it so unique. And I think going forward to Florida and Atlanta, I think we'd see a different side of the rookies that we didn't necessarily get to see here.
Yeah, it's definitely a proving ground. They've all cut their teeth on it. They all have shown that they can compete and they can keep with these guys. And I think we're just going to see them improve throughout the years. But we have a bunch of exciting battles, and I can't wait. I mean, we have the opening ceremonies coming up here. All the drivers are lining up on track for the VIP fan experience that are out there. So wave to your favorite driver. Make sure to cheer for them when they get announced.
Let's see if these guys are ready for top 16. Are you guys ready for top 16?
Yeah.
We had about 8 people ready for top 16.
8 people are ready for top 16. Thank you, guys. I want to thank David. I want to thank Chris. All right. Well, thank you very much, guys, for listening to the Formula Drift AEM Intakes Halftime Show. I'm Sam.
I'm Corey.
And I'm Paco, and we'll see you next round.
Yep. Thank you very much.